Good afternoon, guys. Mike here with Wilderness Warriors and Woodsman's Gear on YouTube. Wanted to go over something that's been bugging me for a little while with all the discussions and review videos and whatnot on YouTube. And it involves the saws. The saws have always been a big topic amongst the outdoors, whether you're into survival or prepping or bushcraft or whatever. Even hunting. There's tons of stuff out there about different saws that they use for delimbing for tree stands and whatnot. But everybody has mentioned certain aspects of it, that curved blades, they don't like them, they don't like saws that only cut on the pull stroke and stuff like that. But nobody has gone into any of the specifics and the details as far as why a particular saw is designed a certain way and why it works or doesn't work. And I wanted to touch on that today. We've got 4 different saws here, and there are many more out there. Of course, the most popular, the Baco Laplander. Everybody loves that saw. It's a pretty good saw. But the discussion on curved blades and straight blades and push or pull saws or bidirectional cutting, just nobody's really covered the details on that, and I wanted to go over a few things with everybody to maybe help them make a decision on what saw to get. So your first traditional saw is the bow saw. You can get different blades to go in this for dry wood, for green wood. You can even get hacksaw type blades to go into it for cutting metal. And essentially this saw is a bidirectional saw, and most people would say that this saw cuts on the push and the pull stroke. From a physics standpoint, technically both directions are pull strokes, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Flip a piece of wood around here. So with a bow saw, you've got the bow up here that actually tensions the blade. Tilt down just a little more. And so with that tension on the blade and your handle only on one side, you can use a hand over here for stabilization if you need to, but I don't think I'm going to for this particular piece. So when you apply pressure to the handle and you push this way, most people think of it as you're pushing the blade through the wood, and that's really just not the case. What you're doing is applying that force to the frame. The frame is attached to the other front end of the blade, and it is actually pulling that blade more than it is pushing the blade. And that has to do with the tension that the frame provides on the blade itself. If you were to be using a bow saw like this that actually has slack in it, and some of those are like a carbide rod or a carbide cable, typically used for cutting like concrete and marble and stuff like that, for stock, for hand tools. Most everybody uses power tools these days, but that would be an actual push and a pull because you've got slack in it and it's not tensioned. This is a mechanical device that actually transfers the energy that you put into it. So as you're pushing through, the blade is being pulled by the opposite end of the handle, and when you're pulling back, you're pulling on this tension side, so that's actually a pull stroke. The teeth on this blade cut very deep. They're very thin. This is a very wet piece of wood. It's been raining for 3 days here. And it has a very narrow kerf, and the kerf is the dimension of lumber or wood or material moved from the stock by the blade. And so each one of these teeth has a perfect 90-degree pitch. Well, there are double teeth in there, but the single teeth are perfectly isometric isosceles triangles. So each side is the same length, and across the bottom, direct center is direct to the tip of the tooth. That gives you an even cut regardless of the direction. The thin blade gives you a very narrow kerf, which also provides less resistance, which is how the teeth can be much bigger and still be able to cut very quickly. In general, very good saws. Obviously some blades are much better than others. This is the super cheap one at about $5 for the frame and the blade. So those are the mechanics of the bow saw, and that is truly a push-pull bidirectional cut saw that technically are both pull strokes. On the folding side of things, a lot of saws, this one happens to be a Fisker's. This is a pruning saw. Even though it is a pruning saw, most pruning saws have curved blades, and we'll go into that detail as to why here in a few minutes. But this saw is listed, I believe, as a push-pull cut. That's not 100% accurate, but I think the reason that they do that is because the teeth are so sharp and so aggressive that even when you're going forward, it is quite aggressive in hitting that material. But you can feel that there's nowhere near the friction as when you pull back, even if you're not putting any tension down on the handle. And you can't necessarily see it too well, but these blades, the teeth in the blade, has a slight cant backwards towards the handle, so it digs in as it's being pulled back. So primarily this is a pull stroke saw. The design of a pull stroke saw is relatively simple. They make the teeth very aggressive, usually razor sharp, which these are. They will slice through leather gloves and bite you in a heartbeat. But it's designed to provide less friction going forward, and what that does is remove the material from the kerf cut. And then when you pull back, applying more pressure down is where it really digs in, and more power is needed in order to make the cut. But as far as evening things out, the lessened amount of power to push forward to clear it balances out with the power to pull back to cut deeper. So I'm going to cut this off real quick with it. And you can see the materials flying out, at least I hope you can, on the push forward stroke. Now, this is a pretty good saw. They cut straight. Again, this is, they are razor sharp teeth. This one has a little bit of a benefit in that it can actually fold backwards somewhat and be used as an undercut saw for clearing limbs that are above your head a little bit. I kind of like that, but this is not my favorite saw. It does have a pretty decent handle. The orange is rubbery grip type material. The plastic, or the black, is the typical Fisker's plastic, so it's kind of slippery. But with all the orange in there, you can get a pretty good grip on it. There's a little bit of blade wobble on this one, but it's a $18, $19 saw at Home Depot that can be found anywhere. Probably around the 10 ounce, 11 ounce mark. I really haven't weighed them. To me, when it comes to saws, it really doesn't matter about the weight. It's about how they perform and how you perform with them. My favorite two saws are these, for large and small. This is the Corona. This is a true pruning saw as well, curved blade. It is a cut on the pull stroke only. Super aggressive teeth that have a little bit more of a cant back towards the handle, and that also is where we come into the curved blade feature. Now, the curved blade feature allows you to push forward with very little pressure whatsoever to clean it out, and it reduces the pressure over a flat blade because it's kind of going in an arc at that point just by the human motion and the way your arm's moving. Yet the cut is pretty close to being flat, even though it's a curved blade, because of the way that you pull back across it. But the cut is slightly angled down because of that curve. Now, the curve works in the benefit on the pull stroke in that being curved and the way you hold the handle pulling straight back, the blade is below your point of cut, so the teeth dig in very aggressively. And you can just feel it, but it takes virtually nothing to slide it forward, yet you can't slide it back if it's grabbing in. It takes quite a bit of pressure to pull it back, but at the same time it's digging in and removing quite a bit of material. So the forward stroke just clears it, and the backstroke really digs in. And the more you get towards that tip, which is the lowest point from your pulling point, then it starts digging in more and more. So it's actually very good cut and power right in this last 4 or 5 inches on, say, a 10-inch saw. The first part digs in really well, the middle part is about average, and then the tip really bites. But this saw just seems to be very easy to use for me and cuts extremely well. It's also just a little bit lighter. I would say this one's probably around 9 ounces or 10 ounces if the other one was 11 or 12. Folds up nicely. My only gripe is that in that lanyard hole, there's actually 2 teeth of the saw blade that pokes through. So to me, that's kind of useless. If you're actually hanging it by a rope, you're probably going to wind up losing this because it's going to eventually cut through that lanyard. So I recommend just stuffing it in a pocket somewhere. Again, another roughly $20 saw. This one is sold at Lowe's companies, just about everywhere in the United States. Corona actually makes 2 other versions of this. I believe a 7 or 7.5 inch and a 5 or 6 inch version that has this same curved handle. Unfortunately, Lowe's doesn't carry them. You have to go online to find them. I believe that you can find those on Amazon, and I will put some links in to those if I can find them on Amazon for you. And next comes to my little Gerber saw. Now this thing is probably in the 4 ounce range. Those may be a little bit heavier. I'll have to put them on the scale later, but this thing is just feather light. Again, this is a almost flat blade. There is a slight bit of curve there to it, but not very much. It is a much thinner blade. Very aggressive teeth, right on line with the other Fiskars. Not quite as deep because it is just a smaller blade, but it retracts into the handle, and that's it. Like, it fits. You can stuff it in a cargo pocket, you can stuff it in your back pocket. Doesn't quite fit in a shirt pocket, but it'll fit in just about any pocket on any pack. On this one, the smaller the saw gets, is where that pull stroke cut really comes in, because if you have a straight blade that is made for the push and pull cut, and you have metal on your blade that is relatively thin, and you're pushing forward to cut into the wood, you're applying all that pressure to the blade, which is going to cause it to bend and flex. And you've got a very high chance, especially in resinous woods, on it hanging and bending the blade. Obviously that's not a killer. Most of these you can straighten the blades out fairly well. I've bent this one once in the past and straightened it out pretty good. But it's just one of those things that if you can get a saw that you don't have to worry about something like that, to me it's a benefit. And you really don't even have to think about it. The saw kind of does it for you. in that you just lighten up on the pressure pushing forward. It cleans the cut out from the debris and then basically sets it up for the pull stroke back and starts to dig in. But this little saw cuts great, especially for its size. I think it's only a 6-inch or 7-inch blade. And that stick there is about 2.5 inches in diameter. It's a little narrower this way than it is this way, but as you can see, that's as big as my wrist. So you can see that it cuts through them very, very easy. So that's it. That's my take on the saws. Just wanted to get that information out there and explain to some people who may not know the ins and outs and whys of why a blade is designed a specific way or not. So thanks for watching. Thank you for all your support and for all the shopping on the Amazon channel. It all supports this channel and helps me to get equipment, to get out, to be able to do some testing and put videos up for everybody's entertainment. So thank you for all your support. Please click the like button down below and let me know what you think. Please leave some comments. Thank you.